Earlier in this module, we learned that we can use append to combine equally structured information from different queries. Append then allowed us to add rows to an existing query, for example. Now we have a different goal. Now we want to add columns to an existing query, or actually one single column only. Because at the moment we have three queries. The dim region query here, the codes country region query, and this region's full names query. Now, the final idea is to be able to add this region name information, so the full region names, to this dim region query as a separate column. The problem is that at the moment there is no connection between this dim region query and our region's full names. We have this codes country region query though, and here we have a connector because the region code is also available here, this column, and the ID, here is still named as ID, will be the country ID in the end, is available in our dim region query here. This means we can now simply try to first add this information to the region name to codes country region. And then once we have the full names here, we can add these to our dim region query. To be able to add a specific column to an existing query by using a column both queries have in common, we can use the so-called merge queries feature. This feature can be found in the home ribbon and here in the combine area. But before we do so, let's have a theoretical look at this feature. Merging tables or merging queries is relatively straightforward actually, because in the end the goal is to create a new table with additional columns, so to combine the information from two different queries, you could say. Let's have a look at an example where we have this query 1 and this query here, query 2. Now, if you look at the structure of these queries, you can see that both queries have different information. The first query stores product information, you could say. The second query stores customer-related information. But both queries have one common column. It's this first column, the customer ID. And this column will be the connector between these two queries, which will then allow to create a new query based on that information. Important here though, you can see that the second query has the customer ID only once, so we have unique values here. For the first query, this is not true. That's very important. You need one of the two queries with unique values, because with this structure, we exactly know that the customer ID 1 is Max, so Max bought a TV and a phone, and the customer ID 7 is myself, so I bought the notebook. If we would have the ID 2 times in query 2, so if the ID 7 would also have a name of Bob, for example, then the merge wouldn't work, because how would we know which customer is allocated to this specific ID? However, we can now use these two columns and perform a so-called merge, and the result in the end will be this one, a table which contains both query 1 and query 2. As you can see, we have the same structure of query 1. We can also change this behavior. This is dependent on the so-called join kind, will be covered in a few seconds. But with the merge performed right here, we see we keep the initial table, but add that missing information from the second query to this table. So this is how merging works in theory. Let's now explore this in a bit more detail. Because here in our project, we now should go to the codes country region query because we want to add the full region names here. We can now again go to our merge queries button here. And if you select it in the right part with this arrow, you get again the same options we saw for append. So if you select merge queries, you would add the column to an existing query. Creating the merge query as new would create a new table containing the selected information. In this case, I would like to add the column to the codes country region query. Therefore, we go for the first option here. And here we can now see the query that we selected. It's displayed above and the corresponding data. And here we can now select the second query that should be included in our merge. And in this list, we should now select region's full names. Very important here, we now have to select the column both queries have in common. And as I said, in one of the queries, the values in the column must be unique. So you shouldn't have any duplicates in there, otherwise this will cause problems. We made already sure that our region full names query here doesn't contain any duplicates. Therefore, we can select this column here in the second query and also select it in the first query now. You can see down here that we have, well, some kind of success, But before we press OK, we see that we have this join kind feature. I just mentioned that, and if I open this menu, you see we actually have 6 different join kinds. What is this now?